Hi everybody and welcome back to my kitchen. My name is Greta and I'm the dietitian at John Stoddard Cancer Center. So today we're going to make a great recipe. It's very versatile, something we can use and add to a lot of different recipes. This is my homemade Pico De Gallo. We are going to use this as a topping on our sheet pan fajitas, but you can save this and also use it as a topper to your weekday salads. You could put it on top of a grain bowl. It even would work on top of a sandwich or a wrap. So very simple, not a lot of ingredients. It also is going to highlight some ingredients that are very readily available in the summertime, one of which is tomatoes. And I know at some point in the summer everybody's going to have so many tomatoes they don't know what to do with them. So we are going to use today some cherry tomatoes. The original recipe I wrote using Roma tomatoes, but I kind of just grab whatever tomatoes I have available, as long as they're ones that are not too juicy. So like a beefsteak tomato is a little bit too juicy for this recipe. I like aromas where the cherry tomatoes or grape tomatoes because they're sweet but they're not overly juicy. So I'm going to use about a pint of cherry tomatoes, and if you're going to use a smaller tomato, you can cut your tomato up into any size pieces that you want. I kind of quarter them and then half them, so it's like into eighths. I don't like mine too small. You certainly can chop them up smaller if you want to, but they're in about, I don't know, a little more than bite-size-ish pieces. So again, I half it again, and then cut it across the middle. So we sort of half our tomato, cut it into quarters, and then cut those quarters into half. So I'm just going to do that with all of my tomatoes here. If you have a fancy tomato chopper, you can certainly use it. You do want to use a nice sharp knife to get through your tomatoes. A tomato knife that has serrated edges would be fine too. My knife I've recently sharpened, so it is nice and sharp. So I'm slicing through these pretty good. If you have nice fresh tomatoes that are nice and skin's nice and crisp, they're usually really easy to slice through. It's when they get a little bit older and a little bit softer that they tend to be a little bit harder to slice through. This recipe will last for several days in the refrigerator after you make it, which is really nice because, like I said, you can use this on lots of different things. It has so much flavor. You're going to be really surprised how much wonderful flavor this has. Certainly you could top your sheet pan fajitas with just chopped tomatoes and not go the extra step of making the Pico De Gallo, but I just highly encourage it because it is so good. All of the ingredients for the Pico De Gallo will be in your produce bin, so it's really easy to put it together. And during the summer, these are some ingredients that I tend to have in my fridge anyway. I feel like tomatoes, especially if you grow your own cherry tomato plants, Roma tomato plants, there's so many, you don't know what to do with them. Alright, this is probably the longest step in this recipe, is chopping your tomatoes. If you have bigger tomatoes, it's probably going to go a little bit faster than I am with my tomatoes. And then tomatoes, of course, during the summer months have such wonderful flavor. But we're fortunate we do live in a place where we do have some greenhouse growers, and you can get some greenhouse grown tomatoes locally, even into the cooler months, which is really nice too. Alright, I'm just about through my tomatoes. And like I said, I don't cut these too small. I like my Pico to have a little bit of crunch and chew to it. I like to have little bigger chunks on it. But it's totally up to you what your preference is. Alright, last one. Alright, our tomatoes are done. Scrape them off my board with a scraper so I don't dull my knife. Just have a little here. This recipe is also really colorful. It's just so pretty. You can see all the colors come together. All right. So the next thing I'm going to put in here are jalapenos. So jalapenos, if you don't know a lot about peppers, jalapenos are nice because they provide a little bit of heat, but they're not overly hot. I don't like super spicy stuff, but I do like jalapenos. There's just a certain like freshness to them, and they just add some extra flavor. But the spicy part, the hot part of a pepper, are the seeds and this inside part. So I just cut around that and discard that, and then I'm avoiding a lot of the really spicy part of it. The recipe calls for 2 jalapenos. I felt like mine were a little on the small side, so I'm going ahead and doing 3. You do what you like. You know, if you like more jalapeno, you put 4 in. You know, if you like it to be heavier in tomatoes, you can do more tomatoes in yours. You know, I want you to have the freedom to feel like you can modify recipes to your own taste and to what's available in your refrigerator or in your garden or in your produce box. Taste can be different. If you've not tried these ingredients, I always encourage everyone to at least try them once, because you might be really surprised. You know, sometimes you've tried something maybe one time and you didn't like it, but maybe it was how it was prepared, or maybe it wasn't really that fresh. So trying something in a new way, you might be really surprised and really like it. So I do encourage you to try them. Now, certainly if something that you can't even stand to look at and can't stand the flavor of, then certainly I would encourage you to substitute. Or if you have an allergen to any of the ingredients that we're using, certainly replace them. So like I said, I just cut right around the seeds and I leave them out. So I'm just gonna take my peppers and just kind of slice them long ways so that I can chop them. Now I do like my peppers chopped a little bit smaller than my tomatoes, just because they do provide a little bit of kick to them. So I don't want too big of a bite. I like to have a little bite. So I just cut them into strips. And I'd say they're maybe a 1/4 inch thick strips. Not too tiny. Alright, so now my strips are all ready. I'm going to split them into 2 piles so I can chop through them. So I'm just going to take my strips and I'm going to line them up, and then I'm just going to cut them into little tiny, like 1/4 inch size cubes. And just throw them right on top of my tomatoes. And then I'm going to go ahead and get my next batch. I split it into 2 just because it's easier to run my knife through and a little bit safer. If we make the pile too big, then it's a little bit more dangerous, I feel like, to run my knife through. So I'm just going like this. If you get any pieces that are a little bigger than you like, then you can go ahead back through and cut them a little bit smaller. But to me, that's about the fastest way to do it. Alright, throwing them in. Use my scraper, scrape the rest in. I try not to use my knife scraping on the board. I do it sometimes just because I get lazy or forgetful, but it will dull your knife. So that's why I try to use my scraper when I remember. All right, the next beautiful color is going to be some red onion. Like I said, this is super colorful. I love the sweetness that the red onion offers to this too. Like, this is just layer on top of layer of flavor that you're going to get out of this recipe. You're going to just be amazed. So I'm just peeling the skin off. All of my vegetables were thoroughly washed before I started. I like to wash everything first so that it's all ready to go. It just makes preparing things so much easier. My pepper is turning my fingers purple. So I'm just, this one's pretty funny shaped, so I like very uniform shaped onion. So I just kind of cut mine in half like that. And then I'm going to go back this other direction and just go like this. And this cutting it about the same size that my pepper was cut. Because again, this offers a lot of flavor, so I don't want too big a chunk. And I'm just gonna throw those pieces in. I always think a Pico De Gallo it's not so much a dip as it is a relish. The pieces are just a little bit bigger than maybe a dip would be, and it's not a loose, you know, it's not, it's got a lot of texture to it, so it's more than like a sauce or a dip. I always kind of feel like it's more like a relish. So everything is chopped. So pretty already. So I'm gonna go over to my limes. Now this is gonna add a whole nother layer of flavor. So I'm gonna do 2 limes, roll them on my board to get their juices going, cut them in half. The limes also help, it freshens this up, but it also is gonna help these keep, all your veggies keep a little bit longer from browning. The nice thing about adding lime juice, like if you're going to make a guacamole too, it keeps it from oxidizing. Any kind of citrus juice will keep fruits or veggies from oxidizing. So I'm going to just juice both of these limes right on top of all my veggies. Some limes, they always are very deceiving to me. Sometimes they look super juicy and delicious and you start juicing them and you're like, gosh, there's no juice in that. They're pretty decent. All right, if you noticed, I only put half my onion in because I never know until I stir it how much onion that I want to put in there. So I'm gonna stir it first and then see if I can add some more. So that was the juice of 2 limes. So the next thing I'm going to add even more freshness, if you've cooked with me before, you know I'm anti-cilantro. I'm only anti-cilantro because cilantro apparently doesn't like me, because when I eat cilantro, to me it tastes like soap. And it makes everything it touches taste like soap. So I have tried and tried and tried, thinking I could trick my palate into liking this wonderful herb that so many recipes include, but I just can't do it. So my substitution is flat leaf parsley, or Italian parsley, and I use that in place whenever cilantro is called for. So if you are like me and you think that cilantro tastes like soap, it's a genetic code. My mom doesn't like it either. She said it tastes like soap. So if you have that code, it's okay. Just use flat leaf parsley, Italian parsley, and it will offer you that fresh element. No chefs will say it's not the same flavor, and yes, I know, but it's much better than it tasting like soap. So I will take what I can get. So I'm just taking the greens off of here. And I got a nice little pile here. I don't measure this. It's just a nice little like half a cup pile here. And I'm just gonna kind of run my knife right through it. It doesn't have to be too small, or it doesn't have to be fussy. The one time I will say it is very important to have a sharp knife, other than cutting tomatoes, is when you're cutting your herbs. Because if your knife is very dull, it will just sort of macerate your herbs. If you've ever chopped herbs and it just looks like it's turning into a big pile of mush, that's because your knife's too dull. So what it's doing is it's just smashing it instead of actually cutting through it. So you want to make sure your knife is nice and sharp so you can actually cut through your herbs. But of course, be really careful. I'm putting my hand right on top, and I can use my scraper then to clean my knife off and kind of pull my herbs together back into a pile. Like so. And if I want to chop right through it again. So I'm not putting my fingers in the way of my knife. All right, to me that is plenty chopped. It does not have to be real tiny. I like it to have a little bit of texture left to it. I love the flavor of flat leaf parsley, Italian parsley. I think it's delicious. If you love cilantro and think it's delicious, you go ahead and put cilantro in there. You know, even if you have some fresh basil. You can throw that in here too. I think that would offer a nice fresh flavor. Not traditional, but that's okay. This is yours. You're gonna be the one eating it. So I want you to enjoy it. So I'm gonna run over, sorry camera person. I am gonna add a little bit of salt. And I'm not a big measurer, so I'm gonna add about a half a teaspoon of salt, just a little bit, just to flavor it. Some coarse salt. And then I'm gonna do a few turns of pepper in here. I don't have to over pepper it because I already put all that lovely jalapeno in there. And I'm just gonna run my spoon through it and combine it all together. And this is the point where you can say, I like it to be kind of evenly weighted, onion, jalapeno, tomato. I like it to have about the same amount. So if you can see, mine is a pretty good even distribution. This is the point you can be like, you know, I don't think it has enough tomato. I'm gonna add more. I think I'd like more onion in there, so I'm gonna add more onion. And you can modify it. I personally think it needs more onion, so I'm gonna add just a few more slices off of this onion that I have sitting here. I'm gonna save the rest for something else. I like red onion, and I want my fajitas to have lots of fresh red onion flavor on them, so I'm putting that in there. I use this on salads too, like if I just make a green salad and I have this left over, I put this on top, and you almost need no dressing then on your salad. You can just add a drizzle of olive oil, and your salad is dressed, which is the really nice thing about this. And that is it. You let this sit for about 30 minutes or more. It even tastes better overnight if you let it sit overnight. It's great to make ahead before you're going to make your sheet pan fajitas. And you're ready. So join me in a little bit, and we're going to make our sheet pan fajitas.